Namaste to all of you. We will begin the class with our normal prayer that we do every time, and then we will chant the 5 verses from Drg Drsya Viveka. So let's just have everybody join in. I'll just wait for about half a minute and then we will start the prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to today's class. So what I will do is to chant the first 5 verses, which form a group as we will see, and I will do it twice. So each verse, I'll do both the lines of a verse and then repeat both the lines of the verse, and then we'll go to the next verse so that you have some practice in pronunciation. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tadrishyam Driktumanasam Drishyadhi Vrittaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tadrishyam Driktumanasam Drishyadhi Vrittaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate. Nilapita Sthula Sukshma Hrasvadirgadhibhedataha Nana Vidhani Rupani Pashyet Lochanamekadha. Nilapita Sthula Sukshma Hrasvadirgadhibhedataha Nana Vidhani Rupani Pashyet Lochanamekadha. Andhyamandyapatutveshu Netradharmeshu Chaikadha Sankalpayen Manah Shrotra Tvagadau Yojyatamidam. Andhyamandyapatutveshu Netradharmeshu Chaikadha Sankalpayen Manah Shrotra Tvagadau Yojyatamidam. Kama Sankalpa Sandehau Shraddha Shraddhe Dhriti Tare Hrir Dhir Bhirityevamādin Bhāsayetyekadhāchitihi. Kama Sankalpa Sandehau Shraddha Shraddhe Dhriti Tare Hrir Dhir Bhirityevamādin Bhāsayetyekadhāchitihi. Nodeti nastametyesha na vriddhim yati nakshayam swayam vibhatyatha anyani bhasayet sadhanam vina. Nodeti nastametyesha na vriddhim yati nakshayam swayam vibhatyatha anyani bhasayet sadhanam vina. So these are the verses that we will, having chanted them, we will go over the meaning of these 5 verses. And I think we've mentioned that before, that in these 5 verses really contains the truth of our life. If we just get an understanding of what is being said in these 5 verses, we're done. We're free. There is really the reason we are born is to have a quest for complete freedom. And it is also the same thing as finding God, finding Ishvara. Really the two are identical, as we will see. Because freedom is the very nature of God. And I want that. So as we have mentioned before also, it's interesting, Vedanta takes a optional view of how to start this understanding, how to start the quest for this freedom. So one way is to start with yourself as a human being, as a jiva. So jiva means one which is a living being. And here the animals do not have the mind yet. They will have it later on in their next lives. But the mind that needs to understand is only given to human beings. And so the human being is, so one way to start the quest is to start with yourself as a human being, as a jiva. The other way to do it is to inquire about God, about Ishvara. And Vedanta says really it doesn't matter which way you go, because they both meet at some point together. And I think we have discussed it perhaps before. I'm not sure whether it was in this class or some other class. It is like drawing a circle. You can start the compass. It's your choice whether you want to start from the left and go around the complete circle, or you want to start on the right and go around the circle. But when you are done, which is really the understanding is now clear, complete, the circle loses its starting point. Doesn't matter whether you are starting with an understanding of the individual or you're starting with an understanding of the cosmos, of God. It so happens, it's very interesting that the 2 recent classes that we are taking up, Drg Drsya Viveka, and the new one that we started last Tuesday, which is called Purusha Suktam, are taking these 2 opposite views. Drg Drsya Viveka takes the understanding of the individual as it is given in the first 5 verses, which we will take up now. And when you proceed along lines, you will begin to see that the elements of Ishvara also are being approached. Or if you start with Purusha Suktam, which is an examination of Ishvara, if those of you that are attending that class, what you will find is that the Ishvara's qualities are seen to be your qualities. Amazing. So it doesn't really matter either way. Just on the quick commentary on the Purusha Suktam. So the Purusha Suktam is a very famous prayer, encomium, which is done in all of the Hindu events and so on and so forth. It's an age old from Rig Veda. And so we are taking up the explanation of what this is for people who are really very, very familiar with the chanting of that. And anyone else is welcome to participate in it, but be aware of the fact that it has elements of the mythology, the Hindu mythology, that you'd have to contend with. So the people who are already familiar with it, I have a little bit better affinity to it, but doesn't matter. You can, if you want to attend, you can do so either way. So anyway, these are the two ways of completing the circle. Having said that, now the Drg Drsya Viveka starts. So it says the following. It says, these 5 verses say the following. It says, examine yourself, how you function, what are your constituents, what are the elements that constitute you, and give some thought to it. And so the examination of these elements and the analysis of it is provided by the spiritual books, Shastra. So Shastra says, it's an interesting thing. So the Shastra says, start to examine it. But examine it from the way I suggest that you do. You can do it any way. You know, like for example, the modern science will say that our hands are made up of so many elements, and it's good. It talks about you know, all the good bugs and the bad bugs in your gut, and what the body consists of, and what the senses consist of. All those kinds of things. You can look at it any way. Excuse me. But what the Shastra says is that please examine your constituents in the following way. And this leads to some Viveka, Drg Drsya Viveka, which has some major implications in your life, as we will see. Major implications. So, for example, when the science looks at the constituents of your body, it has some significance for disease control, for a healthier life. It's all that is good. But here we are looking at something far beyond that. What is the reality? Where am I? Who am I? Where am I going? What's my next life? What is my future? What's my past? Who am I? What is going on? This is a very fundamental examination of ourselves. Outside of it has nothing to do with religion. There's no such thing as Russian physics and American chemistry and so on. Physics is physics, chemistry is chemistry, whether you may have a American person teaching it or a Russian person teaching it, but it is the basics of it, and this is the basics that we are studying. So the Shastra says, let us look at the very basic aspects of yourself. So it starts, it says, all right, look at how your eyes function. Your eyes function as a singular seer of the various forms that you see. So by the way, just to, I think you already know this, verse number 1 gives the summary. Verse number 2, 3, 4 and 5 support the summary with some detail, and these 5 verses constitute a group which is the fundamental summary of what a human being is. This is it. We can actually stop the study with a lot of commentary just on these 5 verses. We will not, but it's possible. The rest of it is really just an explanation of these 5 verses. So the whole thing is really just contained in these 5 verses. Anyway, so the first verse is the summary of all the 5 verses. So the first verse says, listen, look at your eyes and examine its function. The eyes function as a singular entity for seeing multiplicity of forms. So this is important to see. In order to cognize multiplicity intelligently, you need a singularity of a person or an entity that is watching it. You cannot have multiple eyes. You see, that's the thing. Suppose you want to see a color blue. You don't have an eye which is only meant for seeing color blue, another eye for seeing color red. Then what will happen is you can't even tell what the differences are. What is the difference between blue and red? Because they are different eyes seeing everything else. You would then need to have another eye that looks at both of the red eye and the blue eye. That doesn't happen. And so in this creation, something has been created which is good enough to see all the forms. This is the singularity of the eye. But the singularity of the eye does not stay. It also changes, as we will see. So it sees the forms as a seer, the eye does, but then it itself becomes a scene with respect to the mind. So what this means is that the eye is a provisional seer. It enjoys singularity as a seer, but it doesn't stay a seer. It becomes a seen by the mind. Okay, you say, all right, so fine, the eye also changes, and we will see how it changes in a minute. So all the details of the other ones, this is just the beginning. Fine, you're telling me that the eye is... So what it's saying is that the eye is both the seer and the seen. This is very important. It's very important to keep in mind that there is a creation where something is made both the seer and the seen. All right, fine. We set that fact aside for a minute. Let's go on. So who sees the eyes changes? The mind sees the eyes changes, as we will see later on. How? So the mind is now the seer, and not only the eyes, but all the other sense organs, the organ of touch, the organ of smell, the organ of all the other 5 organs that we have, taste, etc. The mind sees all of them. This is kind of like the supervisor. Swami Dayanand used to give this example. He says, you have these taxis that are all over the place. Some taxi is on the airport, and then you get a call from someone. He says, I need to be picked up from the downtown. So that taxi person doesn't know the downtown taxi, but there is a coordinator sitting there in the office that knows this taxi is in the airport, this taxi is in the downtown, and the one in the airport one is moving in this direction. This is the coordinator, and so the mind is like that, the coordinator. It says, the eye says, ah, beautiful apple, and the sense of touch says, nope, this is not to be eaten. And the eye says, I don't know, it looks like an apple to me. And so now the mind says to the taste one, can you taste it? And can you touch it? And both the taste organ and the touch organ say the eye was wrong. This is a stone apple, not a real apple. It looks like an apple. It sure fooled him, but they cannot fool me. So the mind is the one that is really coordinating all the various functions. Even though the functionaries by themselves have full control, the eyes can see all the forms. The taste one can tell this is sour, this is sweet, and so there's a lot of things that the taste organ of sense organ feels. Similarly, the touch, which says this is hot, this is cold, this is rough, this is smooth, all of that is done. Mind is now the seer for all of them. Is mind the ultimate seer? No. So now we can see Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. Lochanam means the eye is the Drik. Tad Drishyam. Tad is the pronoun. The noun is Lochanam and the pronoun means that. Tad means the Lochanam becomes the Drishyam, the scene. Drik to Manasam. However, the Manasam here means the mind, is the Drik. So then the mind becomes the Drik. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tad Drishyam Drik tu Manasam. Is that the ultimate seer? The second line says no. Drishyaha dhivrittayaha. He says that the dhivrittis means all the forms of thoughts are seen. So the mind is also seen, as we will see. The mind also has this dual role of both the seer and the seen. Then comes the hammer. A very important statement. Drishyaha dhivrittayaha sakshi drig evatu natu drishyate. There is one entity which is the consciousness, the awareness, the knowledge, is only the seer and never becomes the seen. This is a crucial statement. It looks like just a simple thing, but herein lies the seeds of our freedom. Therein lies complete cessation of all of our problems of life. Just in this one. What? How can you say that? All we are studying is that there is a dual role and a singular role. It is true. If we just focus on this, then that's all that it takes to gain what we are here in our life for. Drigeva natu drishyate. This is a drastic change. Drastic change. And it is, something like, supposing you have a newborn in your house, a baby, and the baby is given a bottled milk, not the mother's milk, but the bottled milk. And the bottled milk for the baby has to be done very correctly. It cannot be too hot and it cannot be too cold. Too hot is obvious. It will burn the baby's lips. So it actually has to have a rubber nipple on the bottle with a small hole to suck the milk from. And it cannot be too cold either, because it's not good for the baby, and the baby also would not like it. So the milk has to be delivered to the baby through a bottle of the milk. And it has to be the right temperature. Pardon me. So the right temperature is the milk in the bottle is the right temperature. Is the milk in the bottle its own heat? No. No. This is the creation, that you can have a milk which can be frozen and had an ice cream made out of it, or it can be refrigerated so that it doesn't spoil, or it could be in a room temperature, or it can be heated just enough for the baby, or it could be made into a tea. So the water has complete variation of the heat. That means the heat of the water is not its own, isn't it? If the water is intrinsically hot, then it will stay hot, but it doesn't. So therein lies the analysis. Anything that changes, like the heat of the temperature of the water, must borrow its heat from something else. This has enormous implications for our functioning of our sense organs and so on. And we'll see that in a minute. But let us stay with this example. So the water is hot because of something else. And then water is hot because you could have a pan of water which has been put on a stove, and the water of the pan heats up the water in the bottle. So the water in the pan is the cause of the temperature of the water in the bottle. Is the water in the pan independently hot? No. The pan has to be heated, and the water in the pan, by being in touch with the metal of the pan, gets heated. Is the metal of the pan independently hot? No. The metal is heated by fire. is the fire independently hot? Yes. Now we have a very interesting creation. You have fire. So if the fire also, although there is some, we'll study that, this is a much more advanced study, that supposing the fire is dependent on the wood. No, the wood, the fire is dependent on the use of the fire is dependent on the wood or the gas. Let's say you have a gas connection or electricity or something. So the use of it could be expressed, but the fire is by itself is always hot. You don't have a cold fire and a hot fire and a semi-cold fire. No, there's only hot fire. The hot fire may not express itself unless it has the right mechanism, the right appliance. That's a separate thing altogether. But the fire is always hot. But now we have an interesting creation that the fire transfers its heat to the pan. The pan transfers it to the water in the pan. The water in the pan transfers it to the milk in the bottle. And that milk now is regulated at the right temperature to serve a particular need. We have something similar going on in this case also. The eyes see as a function, but the seerness of the eye is not its own. It loses its seerness, becomes a seen, because it borrows its seerness from the mind. Just like the temperature of the bottle borrows its heat from the water in the pan, similarly here it is a borrowing of the seerness, not its own seerness. So then it borrows its seerness from the mind. Does the mind have its own seerness? No. It also borrows the seerness from the Sakshi, the consciousness. The consciousness, does it borrow from something else? No. Just like fire is intrinsically hot, a Sakshi is intrinsically a seer. This is a very big thing that we are going to see. We just understand this enormity. The enormity of this is mind-boggling, as we will see. Absolutely mind-boggling. This is the connection between the God and the jiva. This is the circle. There's one consciousness. It never changes. And it is the very nature of seerness. So this is why I can ask each one of you, can you hear me? And can you see me? And you'll all say, yes, I know. I hear you. I'll say, how do you know that you are hearing me? Oh, I know. know I hear you. I know I can see you. I know. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you know the language? Yes, yes, yes. I know. I know English. If I'm talking in Tamil or Hindi or something like this, you'll be hearing the words, but you will say, I don't know what you're talking about. And I can ask you, how do you know you don't know? Hey, I know that I don't know this language. I know English. I know what I don't know. I know what I know. I know. I know. I am aware. Knowledge and awareness are one and the same. I know. This is the Sakshi. We have really taken it for granted. We don't know the enormity of this. Once we see the implications of this very simple statement, very simple. It's 1/4 of this first verse only. First verse has 4 quarters, right? Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik, quarter number 1. It says that all the forms are seen, but the seer is the eye, 1/4 over. Then comes an interesting fact. Tat Drishyam Driktu Manasam. Really? It is not, it loses its seerness. It becomes when you say it doesn't totally lose its seerness, but it becomes a scene. So as the very swarupa, as the very nature of seerness, yes, it loses it. Just like water, as soon as you switch off the fire, the water is not naturally hot. In fact, coolness is the nature of water. Coolness. Not coldness. If you want to freeze it, you have to do something. But just normal coolness is the nature of the water. So if it becomes hot, it's not the nature of the water. Anyway, so that's the second quarter. First quarter is Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. Second one is Tad Drishyam Driktu Manasam. Then what about the next one? No. Drishyaha Dhivrittaya. Then the mind also becomes, so now the successive way of looking at it also comes about in the third quarter. Then comes the fourth quarter, which contains the kernel of freedom. Just quietly in 1/4 of a verse. Enormous implications. This is what we have to see. Rupam Dishyam Lochanam Drik Tadrishyam Driktu Manasam Dishyadhivritaya Sakshi Drik Eva. It is only the Drik, Natu Drishyate. Just look at yourself. You always are, I know. This consciousness, does it ever disappear? Oh yeah, my consciousness disappeared. Just yesterday for about an hour it disappeared. How do you know? Well, because I was conscious of the fact that my consciousness disappeared. See, you have to say that. You cannot even say that it disappeared until you were there to see its disappearance. This is the beauty. My gosh, this is so, this is so interesting. It is so easy that it's very difficult. It is right underneath our nose. Our freedom is me. But I refuse it. Oh, it must be very difficult. I have to, my life, I have to change it around. I got to do these temples and prayers, and I have to go these pilgrimages, and right now I'm very busy. And my gosh, we make such a big deal about our lives, when in fact Sakshi Drg Drsya. You cannot even get rid of it. If you commit suicide, all you do is that the expression of this awareness in this body is changed. But you haven't really changed at all. You'll still be the same consciousness. You'll have to express it in another body. The consciousness is not something which can be changed. Anyway, I'm moving ahead a little bit. We'll do that later on. So this is it. This is the first verse. Then the second verse simply explains the first one. How it explains how the I became a seen rather than a seer. Because one can say, no, my eyes are always seeing. I can see. I know it can see. But there is something inner to you that is watching your eyes. And your eyes are not always the same. So don't insist on the fact that it is always a seer. It is also the seen. How? The second verse explains it. Andhyamandhya patutveshu netra dharmeshu cha ekadha sankalpayet manaha. Manaha sankalpayet. The mind ascertains. Sankalpa here means resolves, ascertains, knows. That's easy to do for the mind. What is easy to do? My eyes don't see at all. It happens to people. You wake up next morning, your sight is gone. What? You open your eyes and you cannot see anything. I have some friends, I think, that told me one time that they had a stroke. And I think even otherwise, I think someone was just saying that all of a sudden the sight is gone. So the seeingness is a much more subtle aspect. It is not like you touch this is what is called golaka. The eye is the golaka. Oh, that reminds me, this is very interesting. Talking about the telemedicine, how the coronavirus has changed things. So this, I don't know if I told this, maybe I've told you this, maybe second time. So the other day, I was just sitting there, my wife says, "Oh my gosh, what's happening to your eyes?" So I said, "What?" She says, "Go look in the mirror." I looked in the mirror, it was a frightening scene. My left eye was all completely red, and I can still see, but it looked like it was bursting or something. And these things, they're very funny. These things happen exactly around 5 or 6 o'clock on a Friday evening. So your regular doctor, the clinic is closed. And now you have to figure out whether you should go to emergency. You cannot talk to the doctor for another 2.5 days, 2 days. This is what happened to me. So I said, Pami, to my wife that, it doesn't pain me and I can see, so it couldn't be that bad. She says, it looks bad. I says, yeah, it looks bad. So I didn't do anything because I couldn't do anything. We had to drive to the emergency clinic. We said, no, let's just. The next morning it already started to get better. And it just went away. Guess what? 2 weeks later, the same thing happened on my right eye. And this time it was really swollen. It was slightly painful. And it all happened on the Friday evening. Again, the same thing. Now I got a little scared. So I waited for my ophthalmologist and I texted her sent her an email over the weekend and said, I've got a problem with the eye. So I immediately got a response saying, the doctor is available to do a Zoom call with you this afternoon. Are you available at 1 o'clock? I said, sure. So sure enough, the Zoom call came in and the doctor said, Mr. Kapoor? I said, yes. She said, can you bring your eye very close to the camera? So I brought it like this all the way. She says, good. Now see left. Turn right. Up. And she looked at it for really less than a minute. She says, I know exactly what it is. There's no problem. She says, you are working a lot on the computer and you're not blinking enough. You see, God has made blinking as a very important thing. It lubricates your eye. You have to blink. And if you're not blinking, then it becomes very dry. And it irritates all the nerve vessels and it becomes red. She says, I've seen a lot of that. You just get an eye drop and you'll be okay. This is what happened. So this telemedicine is helping. And I didn't have to leave my house or anything. It was all done. So this is what the second verse is saying. That the mind, here I had to use a mirror to see my eye. But otherwise, if I lose my sight completely, my mind says, oh, what happened here? So andhya means blindness. Mandhya means not blindness but diminished use. This is what happens. You have glaucoma or something or your eyes are just deteriorating. You have to get new glasses. Mandhya. And patu. Patu means sharp. 20/20 is called patu. Means I can see things very well. It's interesting. My wife and I have an interesting combination. She can see far things very clearly and I can see near things very clearly. So if the both of us are together, we have got a complete picture without anything. And so patitveshu, she can really see a lot of things very clearly from the far. We have a television in our family room and she sits like 14-15 feet away and she doesn't have any sound on, so she just looks at these text on it, and I can't see the darn text, but she can see it. So I says, why don't you put the sound on? She says, no, this is better. I can be doing some emailing and so on, and I can just look up to see, yes, this is what's happening. She can see very clearly. So this is called patutvam. Patutvam means clarity. So andhya mandhya patutveshu netra dharmeshu. These are the various dharmas. Dharmas means qualities, states of the netra. Netra and Lochanam are the two different synonyms. They're synonyms, they're eyes. Ekadha Andya Mandya Patutveshu Netra Dharmeshu Cha Ekadha Sankalpayet Manaha. That the mind is singular and is the seer when it comes to the various forms of the eye. Does it see well? Not see well? So the eye has lost its seerness, but the mind is seer of all of them. And it says then in the last quarter, Shrotra Tvagadau Yojyatamidam, means that this, please also extend this logic to the other sense organs. We are only talking about the eye here in terms of Andya Manditu, but the same thing is true for the other sense organs also, that I cannot smell very well, I've got a cold. And so the mind says, oops, I cannot smell this, and you cannot smell it because you have your nose is blocked. So the mind knows that. So he says, Tvagadau, Tvag means touch, sense of touch also. Yojyatamida means please extend this logic to the others also. So the second verse explains the fact that how the singularity of a seer is lost and it becomes the multiplicity of a scene. So it is exactly like seeing that the water loses its heat because it is borrowing it from someone else. So the seerness of the eye, the touchability of the sense of touch, the seerness of the mind are all borrowed from the Sakshi. They are not their own. This is characteristic of mithya. When it is not its own. The satyam means that whatever you're talking about, whatever quality you are talking about, so far all we have done is consciousness, the fact that I'm aware. It has lots of other implications. Ananda, sukham, joy. We will see that the joy also is the intrinsic quality of Sakshi. I will see all of that later on. Anyway, just continuing on. What time is it? 10:51. 10:51 already? I can't believe this. We've been... Anyway, so I'll finish all these 5 verses, and then we'll see. Then, in the 3rd verse, so the 2nd verse is talking about the fact that all the organs have a dual role, but the mind has a singular role. Sankalpayet manaha ekadha sankalpayet. Just like the mind is a singular mind. It's kind of like the dispatcher and the taxis. So the dispatcher of the taxis has an important role. It knows all the taxis. Which one is lighting up? When the customer calls in, then it says, hey, you go there. And it has a display board. So this is like the mind. The mind is the one which is the dispatcher for all the sense organs, singularity. So maybe the mind is the one which has the consciousness as the Swarupa. No. The 3rd verse explains that. Kamaha, sankalpa, sandeha, Shraddha, Ashraddha, Dhriti, Hrir, Dhir, Bhir, Ityevam Adin Bhasayate, Bhasayati Ekada Chitihi. So Chitihi means the Sakshi. So both the genders are used. So Chitihi can be either female gender or male gender, doesn't it? It's gender free. Ishvara is also gender free. Like I think I explained, responded to a question that how come God is always looking at as a male? And I think we were talking about that. So similarly here also, Chitihi is female, and Sakshi is, I'm not sure whether it is male or neuter, either one, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, and some of it is used for poetic purposes to make sure that the meter is done properly. Anyway, so here the mind also is not singular. It has multiplicity of views. Kamaha. Kamaha means desire. It's almost like an intense desire. You don't get coffee in the morning, you start getting upset. Where's my coffee? You go to Starbucks and the Starbucks is closed. You go to Pete's, Pete's is closed. And so on. So this is called kamaha. Or any desire, not just coffee, but any desire is called kamaha. Sankalpa. Sankalpa means a decision. Tomorrow I must do this. Or today. It's called sankalpa. Sandeha. Sandeha means doubt. So all these are various forms of the mind. You can see that. You can see how the mind changes. Sandeha means doubt. These days it's very common where you say, did I turn off the stove? You're just going out. It happens all the time. Did I close the garage door? I'm not sure. Did I lock the front door? Did I turn the stove off? And so this happens between the two spouses. Sometimes it says, oops, I'm not sure. I think I did it, but I'm not sure. The other one says, I always check on you. So I did it. I closed. Then the other person will say, okay, good, thank you. But there is always a doubt. So this is called sandeha. Shraddha. Ashraddha. So this is a dual form, Shraddha and Ashraddha. Shraddha means a complete trust in something. It's called Shraddha. And Ashraddha means just the opposite of that. No trust at all. I am not sure that I can trust this person. Shraddha, Ashraddha. Dhriti. So Dhriti means courage. Let's do it. It's going to be a very difficult task. No, I think we'll do it. It's called Dhriti. Hrir. Hrir means shame. You really are why did I do that? I can't believe that it was me. Dhir. Dhir here means ascertained knowledge, as Swamiji also pointed out. It's very definite. Yeah. It's a very simple thing that Swami Dayananda used to say that you may have a doubt on someone else, whether it's a man or a woman, because depending on how they're dressed, sometimes you cannot tell. But you know yourself whether you're a man or a woman. You cannot have a doubt about that. So this is what is called dhir. Bhir. Bhir means fear. Anyway, all of them all the different ones. So, Kama Sankalpa Sandehau Shraddha Shraddhe Dhriti Itare Hrir Dhir Bhir Ityevamadin Bhasayati Ekadha Chiti. So the Sakshi knows the various stages of the mind, forms of the mind. You are the one who is aware of that. I was so upset this morning. You know it. Then I found out it was really not that person's mistake. I was so relieved. You know it. Relief. Upsetting. Same person knows it. Then what about the Chitihi? Who knows the Chitihi? He says there is no need to see who knows the Chitihi. Na udeti, number 5. Na astameti esha. Na vriddhim yati nakshayam. Swayam vibhati atha anyani bhasayati bhasayet sadhanam vina. He says all these dual roles that we have been talking about do not apply to the Sakshi. Drigevatu natu drishyate. It is never seen, it is always the seer. Always the seer means what? Sometimes doesn't it take rest? When did it start? When did it start that people think that my consciousness started when I took a birth? And if you have any doubt, you can ask your mom and dad, when did my consciousness start? Oh, your consciousness started on such and such day, April 7th, 1967. They're also wrong, you're also wrong, everybody's wrong. Na udeti. It doesn't start. Na astameti esha. Will it ever end? No. Because to end you need to have a form. This is formless. So we'll talk much more about that. Anyway. Na vriddhim yati. Na vriddhim yati means that I am, it doesn't increase. I was telling you about, there's a, what's the name of this guy? There's several people I see this. What's this guy? Chopra. What's his first name? Anyway, I was seeing an interview with him on a local TV where somebody says, Dr. Chopra, what does it feel like to have, you're a realized person? And so he said, oh, you know, you have a super consciousness. This word super consciousness, I've seen this several times. That means that the Sakshi also becomes super in some cases. This is against all Shastra, against all experience. It is the same Sakshi, my dear. You have the same Sakshi, I have the same Sakshi. We have the same consciousness which never changes. Na vriddhim yati nakshayam swayam vibhati. This is an enormous implication. Swayam vibhati means that it does not depend on anything. It is always on its own. Bhasayet sadhanam vina. It doesn't need any help. It knows. This is satyam. This is the satyam. So now we will quickly revise this next time. and then start to expand our understanding on these basic verses. We've already done some of it, but so much more needs to be done. Because I mentioned to you before that the implication of the fact that it is totally different from others, that the self, which is the nature of consciousness, is unlike anything else that you see in this whole world. Everything else has the duality to it. It sometimes is a sakshi, sometimes it is drishya, sometimes it is drik, sometimes it is driksha. And so really, unlike the fire is totally different. It doesn't depend on anything. It is independently hot. If you want to see its expression, then you have to have the right mechanism. But by itself, it is always there. Like electricity is electricity. Even there may be some changes there also, 400 volt and this, that or the other. So, but relatively speaking, it's the same. Whether you make it, you use it for heating or for cooling, all those are different things. But it always remains the same. So Sakshi is totally different from anything else. This is what we have to see. We are not aware of it. We are not focusing on it. We don't understand the enormity of it, the implications of it. This is what this teaching is all about, and so we will see more details of that. So with that, I will close the class and leave some time for questions, and we'll go from there. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, let's see. Do you have any questions? Deepak Chopra, yeah, that's right. Yes, that was the right one. He's a funny guy, I tell you. He pretends as though he knows everything, and you just study his, he doesn't really, he's not a real one. So good. Suzanne, the Banjaras, Meet Chopra, Natalia, welcome. I saw your email. Thank you. Lychee, Arvind Taylor, Shop Dalals, Greg SQ, Varun. Some of you are watching this two classes in a row. I don't know how you do that. It's easy for me to teach. I can talk, but to listen for 3 hours, it must not be easy. Sulochana, Surinder Chaudhary, Satish, Shanti Kumar again from Chilu, from India. Varun says, I've heard this super consciousness stuff from so many sources before coming in touch with Vedanta that seems everyone was waiting some out of body experience of some kind. You know, that is absolutely right. This is where, and it is part of it is that you keep on following me. Don't leave me. And I have some experience that I will show it to you, but for that you just have to stick to me. And right now you are just ordinary consciousness. Oh, that's nothing. Everybody has consciousness. But if you want something special, super consciousness, oh my gosh. Suzanne, will you say something next time about the difference between our usual consciousness and reflected consciousness? Suzanne, this is what I'm going to be talking about all along. You'll be tired of it. Yes, of course, this is the central part of it, about the not usual consciousness. This is the real consciousness and reflected consciousness. And so there will be a lot of talk about. Interestingly enough, there's Shastra says one thing which is not generally seen. So the self, meaning I, Atma, has three forms. Okay? So I'm sorry I'm bringing this up because it's a new topic that we'll have to see it some other time. But just since you're talking about reflected consciousness, so the Atma has three different segments that you can do. One is called Gauna Atma, one is called Mithya Atma, and the third one is called Mukhya Atma. Gauna Atma means, typically, because I don't want to go into this in detail, typically means when you have a very close relationship, generally with children, your own children, if you have children, son or a daughter, then you look upon them as nothing but as yourself. If something happens to them, it bothers you as much as it happens to you. This is called Gauna Atma. Then you have the second one, which is called Mithya Atma. And the Mithya Atma is the one that is really what we are studying, where if something happens to your body, it happens to you. And so this is called Mithyatma, that the Mithyatma becomes you. Then there is Mukhyatma, means the one which is really the Sakshi, which we do not have the ability to distinguish at this point. We don't have the Viveka. But once we do, then that is the real Atma. The other two are just secondary Atmas that go along. Anyway, so that's one way the Shastra explains this. Narayan says, I threw away Deepak Chopra's books. Good, thank you. Ashwin, how do we know that the consciousness that sees my mind is the same as watches everybody else's mind? So this is what part of the touchy. It's part of the teaching. We will study all that, Ashwin, and so it will. We will see that. You're right. You don't have to assume it at this point that my consciousness is the same as somebody else's. But as we proceed along, this will become clearer. Okay. Maithili, I feel we human beings are so lucky to have this mind, which is also profound, given to us by Lord Ishvara. Thank you for teaching the value of it. Yes, of course, the human species is something very special. Everybody has a mind, actually. It is not as though... So, Sukshma Sharira, the mind is there for all living beings. Living beings means a mind. So even an ant has a mind. And these days in the yard that I go outside, it is full of lizards. There are literally hundreds of them running around, scaring around and scurrying around. And they are also very, very interested in making sure that nobody tramples on them. They go, so they have a mind. They have a mind. What distinguishes the human being from the others is that we evaluate ourselves, not only others. This is why in a horse race, the horses don't feel dejected if they do not come first, but the owners of the horses feel very dejected. The horse feels thirsty and hungry and says, hey, I've been running around for 3.5 miles, now give me some fodder. All of them do that. But you look at the human being that owns the horse, and he says, darn it, what do I have to do to get that horse? Hey, you got second, you still got some money out of it. No, I want to be first. So the self-evaluation of the human beings, which is interesting because until you have self-evaluation, you cannot get complete freedom. So the limitations of self-evaluation becomes the strength eventually. Yeah. Virendra Singh, Suvarna, would coronavirus have a mind too? Yes, coronavirus has a mind also. Yes, so it is all of anything which is living has a mind. Their mind is very muted. They have an automatic. You are just born and you just propagate. How it affects anybody else is up to them. I don't care. I am born as a coronavirus, and all I have to do is to just, whatever is given to me, I'm just going to propagate. So the coronavirus is given by Ishvara. It's not given by coronavirus. We shouldn't blame. It is really Ishvara's, God's doing to us for lots of very important reasons that we may not appreciate, but that's what it is. So that God has a mind. But the coronavirus itself by itself has a mind, but not something which, it doesn't have a mind which says, you know what, I'm going to infect that person, not this person. Just by its own presence, it just stays there and infects. And through your own karmas, you either get infected or you don't get infected. That's up to you. Virendra Singh, by reasoning we arrive at Sakshi, but why can't we experience it and stay in our Swarupa? It is so mixed up with other entities. Well, you experience it, but you ignore it. This is not, this is the experience. This is not as though it's some theoretical thing that you cannot see. You experience the fact that you are, it's just that you are oblivious to it. That's all. Because of our, this is the part of the growth. At first you are oblivious to it and then you're not. That's all. But then it doesn't change anything. Shanti Kumar says, as I understand, corona is lifeless. No. It is any amoeba. It is a small virus and anything. They all have. They're all living beings. They are not a completely inert thing. Cannot have this kind of power. It's just changing everything. Amazing how just a small thing is just incredible changes. Varun, are we not doing the same like knowing we are dreaming while in dream to know that I am Satchidananda while living in... Let me understand one. Are we not doing the same thing, like knowing we are dreaming while in dream, to know that I am Satchitananda while living in Jagrata Avastha? Varun, your question is not very clear, but in any case, at this point, let's just keep the comments based on the specific teaching of this class. Okay, so I would like to keep that happen. And Shri, if all beings besides humans have a mind, how is it that they are not intrinsically free? Because good question, the mind of anyone needs to be educated regarding its freedom. Everyone is always free, but the animal mind is too busy not knowing that it is free. Not too busy, it is incapable of knowing that it's free. So the mind needs to be taught to understand that you are free. And even forget about the animals, if you look at the human beings, 99.999999% all feel that I am not free. So why go to even animals? All the human beings. So this is something which is very extraordinary, and we have to deserve it. Even now, when we are learning and teaching and so on and so forth, we may have some glimpses of it, but we're not too clear about it. So this is the aspiration. Anything which is so profound, one has to aspire to it. You cannot have a breakdown in the system where the easiest thing is. It's the easiest thing. It's already done. Praptasya prapti. But we say, no, it cannot be that easy. Okay, fine. Keep on believing what you want to do. But eventually, we all aspire to say, my God, I cannot believe it. It was right there all along, and I didn't get it. Good questions, all of you. I don't see any others. And so with that, I will say goodbye to you, and we will hopefully see you next week. Om.